Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, as it's a Wednesday, we're doing something a bit different, but not too different. So last week, if you'd watched my video where I said every Prem club's signing of the season, basically we're going to be doing that, but we're going to be doing every Prem club's worst signing of the season. So the complete opposite. Just saying, in my opinion, the worst signing of the season for each Prem club. But yeah, if you're doing like this video, please like it, subscribe if you're new, and let's get straight into it. Actually, no, just before we do that, I just wanted to point out how good this looks. I bought it. It's my first kind of like football sweatshirt that I bought. AZ Alkmaar, 2007 to 2008 sweatshirt. So yeah, I just thought I'd show it off because it looks really nice, and I've not been able to take it off since I've got it. It's just so nice. But yeah, let's get into it. So, starting off as always with Arsenal, I've gone with Willian. I think recently, I made this list about a week ago with, I guess I probably should say this first. So I made this list about a week ago with two of my mates, and basically I've got a link to one's YouTube in the description. One just doesn't really have anything that he wants to be like shouted out as, so you know, he'll probably be in the comments somewhere maybe. But yeah, they both helped me with that, so cheers for that. Hopefully I'll be able to get a link up. If not, then I'll just put their one of their YouTubes in the description. Go check them out, good content. But yeah, let's keep going. Yeah, Willian. So Willian, I think, so as I made this about a week ago, this was before the, what game was it they played? Leicester game, I think, where he actually played really well. But I still think he's probably, out of all their signings they've made so far this season, I think he's probably the worst one. I haven't seen like much out of Odegaard, but that's obvious because he's only been at the club for a little bit. But yeah, so I've gone with Willian, and I think it's fair because he's come from like a big club like Chelsea. I think he came in like a free or something, but he had like big expectations, and he's only that last game, he actually showed his proper ability. But yeah, I think he's their worst one. But overall, I don't think Arsenal's done that bad a business this season, even though they are quite low down in the table. Moving on to Aston Villa, though, talking about teams doing good business, Aston Villa have done very good business. The likes of Martinez, Watkins, two good signings. I'm trying to think of who else they've signed. Can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, they were both good signings. They've bought in Barkley, and that's who I'm going to go with. But he has been very good. I think it's just because he's got injured, which kind of always seemed to happen when he was at Everton. But they bought him on loan. He's done quite good when he was playing, but he's just got injured, and none of the other Aston Villa kind of signings have gotten injured. So I've just gone with him. It's a bit harsh, but it's kind of what I had to do because Villa had really good transfer windows. Moving on to Brighton now, though, I've gone with Danny Welbeck. Danny Welbeck got bought in on a free, and yes, they didn't really expect much from him, but they've really needed a goal scorer, and that's what Brighton really lacked this season. That's one of the main reasons why they are where they are, because their defensive and midfield play have been amazing. It's just their striking is just not up there. Like, Morpie can't finish that well, and Danny Welbeck, they bought him in to maybe just bring in some more experience and to help out, but he's not really done much either. I think he scored 1 or 2 goals this season, and it just hasn't been amazing. He missed a penalty on the weekend, and not been great. So I've gone with him. There was a couple people I could have maybe gone with because they bought in quite a lot of players, but I've gone with Danny Welbeck. Some might say it's a bit harsh because he was never amazing in the first place, but I've just gone with him because he just hasn't been amazing. Moving on to Burnley, this is an interesting one. They've made like 3 signings. They've made Dale Stevens, that I mentioned as their best signing. Norris, who I'm saying is their worst signing, just because it's the second actual player that they actually bought in from a club. So they bought him in from Wolves as just like a backup. Maybe actually, I think it was just a backup to Pope, and Pope's just been fit all season, which is something that has been lucky with the whole Burnley squad. They have been quite fit for a lot of the season. But yeah, Pope's been fit all season. I think he's had like 1 cup game or something like that, and they lost. Actually, no, he conceded 2, I think. Against MK Dons, I believe. So yeah, I've just gone with him just because either him, who they actually bought in from a team, or another player who they just bought in on a free from. I don't know anything about him, so I've gone with Norris. But you know, I feel bad for him. Moving on to Chelsea though, this is like probably one of the most expensive signings that is on this list. I think it is the most expensive signing on this list, and it's Kai Havertz. I think it's kind of obvious. It's like it was either him or Werner really, but Werner's been better. He's scored like a bit. Like he's not been a prolific goal scorer as they wanted, but he's still been like good. He's been getting the assists every so often, getting goals every so often, and he's been a decent attribute to the team. Not quite as much as they expected, but an alright attribute to the team. But not Werner, Havertz just hasn't been that. He's just been on the bench a lot recently, and for kind of the right, like, how do I explain this? He's been on the bench for the right reasons. Like, Tuchel's put him on the bench because he hasn't been good enough. And I think he's gotten one goal in the Cup against a League 2 side, League 1 side. But other than that, he really hasn't done much. And when he has played, he's just looked lazy and just not really wanted to get into it much. And so I've said that he's the worst signing. So, you know, I don't even think that's harsh. But saying how much they spent on him, he's just really, really not delivered. Moving on to Crystal Palace now, though. This player was really bigged up at the start of the season because Crystal Palace fans loved him when they last had him. And that's Batshuayi. I think this season he's not lived up to the hype that he kind of expected, because when he's been at the club twice now on loans, and I think this one's on loan. But yeah, they brought him in for the second time after the first time he actually played really well, and the Crystal Palace fans just loved him because of how well he did. But now he's just not really delivered as much. Benteke scored more goals than him, and he's just not been as prolific as he once was for Crystal Palace. And so I've put him in there as the worst signing for Crystal Palace. And to be fair, Crystal Palace haven't signed many players, but the people they have signed have been quite good, like Eze and I don't know, just Eze really. But yeah, moving on, we'll go with Everton. So I've gone with Olsen. I think it is a bit harsh because he got bought in just to be a backup, and he just got thrown in at the deep end, really. But he didn't keep a single clean sheet while Pickford was injured, which was quite a while. And he conceded, I think, like 2 goals every game or something like that. And he just really wasn't amazing in goal. And it really didn't really change much from Pickford. Like, Pickford was kind of conceding a lot. And then they brought in Olsen, and then he started conceding even more, which they didn't even know was possible. But yeah, I think Olsen just not it. And he should probably just go back to Roma, really. But they've got him on loan anyway, so they probably won't buy him again. Moving on to Fulham now, though. I've gone with Tete. I think Fulham have done very good business, but I feel like the likes of Tete and Loftus-Cheek, I guess, just haven't been as good as they could be. But I've gone with Tete just because he's not been as solid as they could be. And he's not played loads, I will say. But when he has played, he hasn't looked amazing. And I think he's just not really playing much at the moment because Fulham have gone to a 3 at the back. I might be completely wrong, but I think he's probably their worst signing, and I don't know what they're going to do with Tete if they stay up, because I don't know if he's Prem quality. Moving on to Leeds now, though, we've gone for not the obvious one. So people probably go with Rodrigo. I agree with them if they said that, because Rodrigo really hasn't had an amazing season and just hasn't been as good as he thought they were getting, a good striker as they thought they were getting. And they bought him in for like almost 30 million? I don't know. But yeah, they bought him in for a lot and he just wasn't there. But I've gone with Llorente instead because I think he's made like only 3-4 appearances, and they bought him in for almost like 15-16 million, and he's just not. And when he has been in, he's just not played well. And I think he might have kept 1 clean sheet, but just not amazing defender. And saying they bought him in for as much as they did, he's just not really delivered as much. But so I do think Rodrigo's just delivered that a little bit more. Moving on to Leicester now, I've gone with Cengiz Ünder. I think it's a bit harsh, maybe, but I've gone with him just because he started the season quite well, and like Leicester were expecting big things from him, but they bought him from Roma. He wasn't like having the greatest seasons at Roma. He wasn't really proving in the Prem, and has struggled recently quite a bit, and has been dropped for the likes of Mark Albrighton, which is somebody you don't really want to get dropped by. Replaced with. But yeah, and I mean, Castagna maybe, but I feel like Castagna had like a really, really good start and has now dropped off a bit. But Under, I've just put him there just because he's not been as solid as the likes of the other signings that Leicester have brought in. Moving on to Liverpool now. I've gone with Tsimikas. I think that's how you say his name because I think it's a silent T. But yeah, it's kind of harsh because they brought him in from Olympiacos just to be a backup, and when he has played, he hasn't been amazing. But it is like he hasn't played much because Robertson's been pretty fit throughout most of the season, which is something surprising to say about a Liverpool player. But I've gone with him just because the other signings they've made haven't been terrible. Like I haven't seen much from like Ben Davies and Kabak. I mean, he had that good game against Leipzig, so I guess that's something. And he hasn't really been about for that long. But I've gone with Tsimikas just on the fact that he hasn't played much and he hasn't really brought much to the squad when he has played. Moving on to Man City now, though. I don't think this player's worth more than Havertz. They spent a lot of money on him, like about 40 million, I think. And that's Ake. I think Ake, for 40 million, to then be found out that they should have just bought in Diaz in the first place. And since Diaz has come in, he's just not played. It's just been Diaz and Stones, and they've had Stones for a while now, and Stones is just like Diaz has just brought out the best out of Stones, and Ake could have done that, but for 40 million, I think it was, he's just not really proven that he's done much, and to just be replaced just like that, and since he's been replaced, they've gone 21 on the bounce. It's just a bit like, okay, well maybe he's not the best. And spending 40 million on him just to be on the bench is a Man City thing to do, but it's just not an amazing player. Moving on to Man United now, I've got Telles. Telles, I think, hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been amazing either. But he has brought the best out of Luke Shaw, and I just got to give him credit for doing that. But I think it was either him or Donny van de Beek, and Donny van de Beek hasn't had the chance to prove himself as much as I think he could do. He could be, but yeah. So I've gone with Telles just on the fact that he's been replaced by Luke Shaw now, and he's just not looking to be put back in the side anytime soon. Moving on to Newcastle now, I've gone with Jeff Hendricks. They bought him in on free. He's been alright, but compared to Newcastle's other signings, he's just not been as good. And Newcastle have had pretty good windows. So yeah, that's all I got to say really. Sheffield United now, I've gone with Ryan Brewster, kind of an obvious one. I think he's the most expensive signing ever, and he's really not done much. I don't think he's scored a single goal this season. If he might have, but he's really not been amazing, and he hasn't had much game time because he hasn't been amazing. Well, not recent game time, but yeah, I think they shouldn't have spent that much money on him when he's young. Liverpool have just absolutely ripped Sheffield off there, and I don't know what's going to happen with him because he's not good enough to be Prem. Maybe if they get relegated, he might do well again, but we'll have to wait and see. Moving on to Southampton now, I've gone with Diallo, the centre back I believe they brought in. I don't know much about him, but from what I do know is he's not played loads, he's not been that solid, and when he has played, he's not been great. And I mean, Southampton have been great recently, and he's not really brought much to the squad. Moving on to Spurs now, though, I've gone with Doherty. From what I know, from what I've heard from Spurs fans, he's been the worst signing of the season, and it's just been a bit too hot-headed. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think he probably had a bit too much hype around him to deliver as much as he has, and he's not. I think he got injured. I don't know off the top of my head, but from what he has played, he hasn't been as solid as they thought he was going to be. Moving on to West Brom, though, I've gone with Karlan Grant. As a West Brom fan, I know a lot about this, and I think they bought him in for like 13-14 million, and he just hasn't been great. They bought him in to sort out the striker problems from Huddersfield, and that's what they get for spending that much money on a non-proven Prem player. And he's gotten one goal in quite a lot of games, and he's just really not shown much. And he's been played on the left a bit, like a left mid, and he's not really done much there. He just doesn't seem to do much wherever he plays. Moving on to West Ham, though, this one is harsh because West Ham have had an amazing transfer window. I've just had to go with Benrahma, just on the fact that he hasn't had as many assists and goals as some of the players that they bought in, and that's literally the single factor. Benrahma has had a very good season still, but it's just not as good as the other signings they bought in, because they've been amazing. And then the final team, Wolves, I've gone with Marcal. I don't know much about him, or Marcel, I don't know. I don't know much about him, but from what I've seen, he's not been great. And Wolves' defence hasn't been great this season, and it's kind of showing as they are dropping down the table. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. Like the video if you did indeed like the video. Subscribe if you are new. And thanks for watching.